Thank you, Tina. So, when was the last time you heard the word for the love of God? It was probably when your spouse was probably doing something really stupid like putting an ice cream shake in the microwave, huh? But what a great topic. And that's what we're talking about is the love of God or the love of spirit or the love of divine, which is critical to our teachings and so many other teachings. Because what we teach here is that this essence of love is the building block of everything. My mentor, John Waterhouse, tells people that love is the glue that holds absolutely everything together. It's the start of the creative process. And we teach that love is the creative force, and the law, or the universal law, is that just what does our bidding. So we have this essence of love bound deep inside of us. And the one thing that love is not, or the love of God is not, it's not this white-haired gentleman floating on some cloud. I never knew how he did that anyway. And giving providence to you and you and you because you followed some road procedure and you were judged as whole, or you did the right thing. No, this love, this essence of the divine is within each of us. And one of the powerful things that I love about what we do is the founder of the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, when he allowed what he was doing to go from being an educational institute to a spiritual movement, he had two very powerful statements. He says it has to be unique and it has to be distinct or different. And the way it has to be unique is do what he did. Because Ernest wove all the spiritual nuggets of all the spiritual traditions and put it together. And in my opinion, that gives us a view of the universe, this golden thread of all the different spiritual traditions. And that's what he wanted us to teach. And the other thing he wanted us to teach was that it's not dogma. We don't have dogma here. He wanted to teach it's absolutely open at the top. And I had the absolute pleasure of going to the regional teen camp a couple of weeks ago as an advisor. And I think Nicole told you some of the overall picture of the thing. But let me tell you the fun and the mystical part of it. So what happens at that camp, and the teens that come to that camp, when we talk about the essence of a community, the consciousness of a community, when they get together, I've never seen a more powerful, more loving, more non-judgmental group ever. And so the way it works is you come as an advisor, and when the teens are together and as a group, they're different. Now, I had to spend the night in a cabin with 12 teenage boys, or young men, I should say. We're not supposed to call them boys. And they will be what they will be, but it was actually fun. But during the day, what they do is they pair you with a co-advisor, and they put you in what's called a family group. So normally they pair me with a female advisor that I haven't met before. And so then they give you 6 or 7 teens that don't go to your center that you've never met before. And so in summer camp it's 3 days, in winter camp it's 6 days. For that time, in the morning and the afternoon, you do an intensive 3-day workshop with your family. And these teens are ready to be there, they're focused, they're ready to go deep. And what I'm saying is their consciousness is at a different level than any consciousness I've ever seen. And I think that's because that they haven't had decades of people telling us all these false beliefs that slowly seeped in that we started believing. So at the end of the week, bonding definitely happens. And then normally I'm called Dad by the end of the week, and my co-part is called Mom, and they're brothers and sisters. and real change happens. So I've been there 3 times now, and I've been impressed. It's been a spiritual awakening for me. And this time I've been reading a lot of Buddhist literature and Buddhist lectures. So this year I went with the intention that what I wanted to do is view life as it truly is. Sort of a Buddhist concept, which means I had to give up some of my ego. So all I was there, and I knew Reverend Nicole and all the wonderful helpers here had church all handled. I didn't have any issues there. So it was a great experience for me because I could be there fully and wholly. And it was beautiful. But now back to the love of God. And Ernest Holmes says we have all these nuggets. And we get these nuggets from different spiritual traditions. And I just want to show you 3 to show you how they're all weaving together. The first one is from the Bhagavad Gita. The primary message in the Bhagavad Gita, if you want to reach what they call moksha or enlightenment, you have to follow 3 yogas. And when I speak of yogas in this path, I don't mean on a mat exercising. I mean a way of being. And the first way is karma yoga. We have to be in the yoga or the way of being of action. And you see, we all do this here because Ernest Holmes loved this tradition. So we do our affirmations, and hopefully we go out in the world each and every day knowing that we are this beautiful, wonderful spiritual being that has all that we need inside of ourselves. And the second one is the yoga of knowledge, called jnana yoga. Well, we do that here. We love to teach wisdom here. We love to teach experiential stuff here. We like to learn things to help ourselves see life more as a spiritual being and less as a being that's relying on the world to tell us things. We do that, and I know there's one of your co-senior ministers that loves that very, very much and does it almost every day, and that co-minister is probably on the stage right now. And then, this is where the love of God comes from. Then there's the bhakti yoga. It's the yoga of devotion. But once again, that yoga of devotion is just like our yoga of devotion. It's not a love of a God or an image. It's the love of the divine. And this interesting aspect of it comes up. It's not love of just some transcendent being. It's love and the fellowship of those around you. So now this concept of oneness that Ernest Holmes loved that we got from the Hindus comes into the picture. And it goes on, and the Buddhists just take a different little slant on it. The Dalai Lama teaches that the most important thing you can do in your life is to be happy and joyful. He said, China may have taken away my country, but they will not take away my happiness and my joy. Because the Buddhists teach that we're interdependent. Once again, we're not on our own ego, doing our own thing, judging other people. We're interdependent, we're interacting. And we think that God is all there is, so it's in those interactions. And that's what the Dalai Lama spoke about. He says, so if a person comes to you and disagrees with you and says some spiteful words to you, he says those are just words. Ernest Holmes has a great saying because he says God is always God, but we are always at choice. And that's what the Dalai Lama talked about. He says we can take those words and just let them be words and let them be and let them go. Or we can fight back with words, fight back with physical violence. And that's not doing anyone any good because that's all an interaction, an interdependence. And so he gives us this great way of being. And another person that picked up on that same topic that tells us the same thing on what we do with a person that's causing this problem that we view as incompetent, ungrateful, evil, whatever you want to call that. And that's the best Southern Baptist preacher that's ever walked the planet. And that's Dr. King. So I was listening to Dr. King's Love Thy Enemy sermon. It's on YouTube. I'd highly recommend you listen to it. And Dr. King is telling us the same thing, that the most powerful force in the universe is love. Let me read his words of the scripture he took. He says, this is from the Gospel of St. Matthew. He says, you have heard that it hath been said that thou should love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you, that ye may be the children of your Father, which is in heaven. And it's written in the day, in the words of the day, and in the Baptist tradition. And he goes on to say, because no matter what, he says, anyone can love your friends or your dear ones. But what the master teacher was telling us, to go love those ones you don't like, you don't get along with. Because what he was telling us, he says, we are all interconnected. And sometimes the part of them that's bothering you is just some unhealed part of yourself. So Emma Curtis Hopkins used to say, you spot it, you got it. So Dr. King would say, he says, and this is really, really important, because what you can do is you can seed the power of love into that situation. At the end of the day, the one thing that love has, it has a tremendous redemptive force. So at the end of the day, that's what's going to win. The power of love is where we're all going to go. And it's up to us to make that happen. The same thing that the Hindu said, the same thing that the Buddhists tell us, and the same thing that Dr. Holmes wove into his book, The Science of Mind. So this power of love, like my mentor says, is the glue that holds the universe together. And as Dr. Holmes says, remember again, God is always God. This power of love is always for us. This power of love is always within us. But sometimes, unfortunately, we are always at choice. And we can choose from that power of love inside of us, or we can choose from the external world, something someone has told us that we've believed. So if we have this power of love within us, what is it we're to do with it, and what stops us from doing that? I think the first thing that stops us from really doing that is, quite frankly, all these false beliefs that we've come to incorporate as part of ourselves. As part of ourselves. Especially the self-deprecating ones or the lack of self-worth ones. We all have them. A lot of them come from our parents and our peers. Like, you'll never have enough to retire. You're not good at that. What makes you think you're special? These are all disempowering thoughts. And the empowering thoughts, we don't have to go get them from some external source. They're all within them. We just have to change our mind and start looking at them. In the foundations class, we're teaching the concept of grace now. And I love grace because, in my mind, grace is the absolute givingness of God. And when we're having this discussion, we have to go within to appreciate that grace. And once again, it's not some external deity saying, you will have grace if you do this, because quite frankly, it just doesn't work that way. Grace comes from within. Grace is not earned. Grace is our divine birthright. Providence is our divine birthright. Beauty, love, and joy is our divine birthright. We just have to get out of the way. And a lot of times it's these old belief systems that are getting us in the way. And the other thing Dr. King told us, he says, this isn't easy. Believe me, it's not easy. And look what he had to go through. This isn't easy to love your enemy. But if you want to use the most powerful force in the universe, that's absolutely what you have to do. You have to plant that seed of love. And Maya Angelou told us this about the same thing. She says, in the flush of love's life, we dare be brave. And suddenly we see the love cost all that we are and all that we will ever be. Yet it is only love what sets us free. So she's talking about setting us free a little bit from the ego and how it works. Ernest Holmes, well, Dr. King told us to have faith, because if there's anything we can have faith in, it's the power of love. And Dr. Holmes says, this is how it works or looks like. He says, love does not overcome hate and fear by argument or force, but by some subtle power of transformation, invisible in its essence, but apparent through its act. So it's a powerful place to be. And the third way that we can incorporate more love in our life is letting go a little bit of our external ego. And that was the intention that I tried to set for myself. I wanted to see reality as it was, not reality as I see it through Reverend Michael. And don't get me wrong, I think I'm a really good person. I think I have fairly high ethics and try and stay ethical and compassionate and passionate to everyone I meet most of the time. I think I have a wonderful wife and a gorgeous family that loves me very much. And you guys know that I brag about you guys all the time. I think I have the best damn spiritual family, community, blessed community that there is around. But see, that's all me. And what I was wanting to be there was to give up my personality and do my prayer work and be there for those teens who were exploring and expanding their lives in the best possible way that I could. And that was a very empowering intention for me to set. And there they have this thing called stroke books, where you write your intention, and then you put your stroke books out, and all the kids, well, I shouldn't say kids, all the teens, write what they are and how their experience was with you. But that was part of letting the ego go. And I want to share one more thing with you. One of my favorite authors, the physician Rachel Naomi Remen, from her Kitchen Table Wisdom book. She had this experience, and the experience started, she was a physician in a city, and she got to move to a place where she could have just like a backyard garden. And she talked about having a beautiful, mystical experience, harvesting her first lettuce that she had planted by seed, and she was up there, and she was in her spiritual woo-woo land, thinking how succulent it was, thinking how wonderful it was that the ground actually made this beautiful thing. And it brought her back to a point how she'd been living her life sort of automatically, without thinking. And this is what she said. It brought back a prayer that her aunts and uncles had been saying for years. And the prayer goes like this: Blessed art thou, our Lord, O Lord, King of the universe, who bringest forth bread from the earth. And then she started thinking about it and said this: far from being the usual meaningless mumble, these words suddenly were a potent description of something real, a statement about grace and the mystery of life itself. Up until then, I had taken this blessing as a theory or a hypothesis, someone's idea of how things worked. I had no idea that these familiar words were simply a description of something true. I had never witnessed them happening in the world before. I had done ritual the way I had done life, automatically. Life can become habit, something done without thinking. Living life in this way does not awaken us. Yet any of our daily habits can awaken us. All of life can become ritual. When it does, our experience of life changes radically, and the ordinary becomes consecrated. Ritual doesn't make mystery happen. It helps us see and experience something which is already real. It does not create the sacred. It only describes what is there and has always been there, deeply hidden in the obvious. So this life of the love of God has been with us all the time. And as we talked in our class about grace, we just have to calm down and look at it for what it is. See reality for what it really is and see the power and the blessings that we have for what they really are. So I put an affirmation in your program. We got some feedback from you. You guys wanted things to take home. It's in this nice blue form, if you can find it. I take credit for doing that with a little help from home office. And if we can, let's read it together. Today, I allow the principle of love to flow through my mind, through my speech, and into my actions. I arrive today as a place where love is present and all people are safe. I know that by choosing love, I create a world around me that works for all. For love is the path to freedom, and today I choose to be free. And so that's my challenge for you this week. Just take this affirmation home. If it works, read it every day. But make that choice to be free. Make that choice to be silent. Make that choice for love to come forward in your life and go out and put it into the world and act as if you knew the spiritual being that you are. Thank you. God bless you. I love you.